Hi friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I would love to have you click subscribe and click that bell to get notifications every time I upload a new video. So I'm participating in the Card Hoppin YouTube/Instagram hop today, and our theme for this month, for December, is snow, and our technique is ink splatter or ink sprays. I'm going to do a little bit of ink splatter on my card today, and here you can see the supplies I'm going to be using. By the way, participants of this hop are from the Card Hoppin YouTube group and the Handmade Happiness group. So if you'd like to participate in these, by all means, definitely join one of those Facebook groups. Okay, so I have this Altenew winter stamp set. I like the sentiments a lot, and I love this big winter die, and there are a lot of secondary sentiments there. I have an old Echo Park snow stencil I'm going to use, and here you can also see I have this adorable stamp and die set called Snow Unlike You from Sunny Studio Stamps, and I have not used either of these stamp and die sets yet. I've had them in my stash for a couple of years and I haven't used them. That stencil has been used extensively. However, I pulled stuff out of my stash that I haven't used so that I could play today. And I'm also going to be playing with scraps. So I have a piece of white scrap cardstock, and I stuck the stencil to it with some mint tape. I'm using my palette knife to spread some of the Deco Foil Transfer Gel Blanco. And I want to do some foiling today. So I want to add a little bit of foil, and I really like this technique. So I'll peel that stencil off. I will go immediately clean the stencil, the palette knife, and my mat, and I'm going to put that paper aside for at least an hour to dry. And you'll notice that to the right I also have my laminator warming up, because the Transfer Gel Blanco foiling technique requires that you use heat. So I use a very inexpensive 3M Scotch laminator. So while that transfer gel is drying on my paper, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the things that I want to use on the card. So I definitely want this adorable snowman and little girl image. I want that big winter sentiment, and I'm going to pull off a secondary sentiment to go with the winter. And it's like one of the things I really love about this set. There's lots of choices for secondary sentiments. So I stamped the little sentiment and the image in black ink, and I used the Obsidian pigment ink from Altenew. I actually really like that ink for Copic coloring, and I am going to go ahead and Copic color that little image. Now, the big winter sentiment, I decided I wanted to do that in a nice dark blue, and I have this really pretty blue from Catherine Pooler. This is the dress blue, it's called, and it's nice and juicy because this is a new ink pad for me, and it turns out beautifully the first time. So once I get all of this stuff stamped, I'm going to go ahead and die cut it. I just put everything back so that I hate it when I lose a stamp or can't figure out where a stamp goes, so I try to put those away right away. So I'm pulling out my dies, and since I haven't used this, I have to actually remove this comes with the die for the image and a little tiny snowflake die, because there are two little snowflake stamps in the set along with a bunch of sentiments. Now that is a magnetic needle holder I have, so as soon as I cut that off, I put that little die on there so it holds it and I don't lose it on my desk, because the cleanup will happen but when the project is done. So I'm using some mint tape to hold my dies. I always put two pieces, one on each side, just to hold it in place while I die cut it. So I'm going to use that big winter, and I'm only using one piece of the die for this because I stamped it. I'm using the larger, pardon my head, I'm sorry about that. The larger die, this is the outline die, and I like the way this looks. If I wanted it to be thicker and layered, then I could use the the other word die that would cut out that word. So instead of stamping it, I could actually use colored cardstock. So the panel that I use the transfer gel on is dry. Notice that I put the foil pretty side up on top of the panel. I have it in a piece of copy paper folded in half to act as a carrier sheet, and I'm running it through my nice and warm laminator. So now I can go ahead and pull the foil off, and the foil didn't quite cover all the, like, I had some transfer gel above and below, and the paper definitely stuck on that. So just keep that in mind if you're a little sloppy with your transfer gel like I was. So I trimmed down my panel to 4 by 5 and 5 1/4, and I want to have a nice dark blue background here. I just want it to look like almost like a night sky. So I pulled out the tumbled glass distress oxide, and I'm going to cover pretty much the whole panel with this tumbled glass distress oxide. I'm just putting a light layer of this on, and I'll go all around the whole thing. And I'm not worried about getting it blended perfectly at first, because I will go back and forth between the two colors that I'm using and really get it blended nicely when I'm all done. So that foil, by the way, it acts like a resist, so the ink is not at all affecting the foil. And when I'm all done, I will take out a cloth and buff up the foil so I get all of the ink off it. It'll just wipe right off that foil. So this is chipped sapphire. I'm just going to go around the edges. I like my edges a little bit darker when I'm doing something like this, so I'm just adding the dark ink to the edges, and then I'll pull that nice light tumbled glass back out, and I'm just going to keep ink blending now until I get a really nice blended panel, and I'll just keep doing it till I'm happy with it. So that's the secret to ink blending. When I was all done, I used a microfiber cloth and buffed that up, cleaned off that panel so I didn't get any ink on my hands. I also inked the sentiment, the little secondary sentiment, and I did go ahead and color in this sweet little image with my Copic markers. And it's a pretty small image, so it didn't take very long, and I only used a couple colors of each one of the color combinations that I pulled out. So I finished that off, and I went ahead and put together my card. I had a piece of metallic silver, or it's almost like a dark gray metallic like scrap in my scrap bin that I pulled out. That's cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. My ink blended panel fit perfectly on there, and I like that dark around the edge. Now I'm going to do just a little bit of splatter, because I like layers when I'm doing snow. I think the layers look really nice. And I know that's an ink spray, but the thing is clogged, so I just splatter this on. And a lot of times I'll let it dry, and once it's dry, I'll splatter on a little bit more, because I like layers of snow flurries, and with some of it being shiny silver and some of it being nice and white, it's pretty fun. So I cleaned up my area, I let that dry. Now I just have to put my card together. I'm going to use some foam on the back of the smaller sentiment, and I'm using these thin foam strips just because I have them right next to me. And I'll also put some foam on the back of the snowman and the little girl there to pop those up and give them some dimension. I'm using a nice fine tip on this Ranger multimedia mat on the back of this sentiment, so I'm just putting that on there, and that'll be nice and flat against the card. So I'll have some dimension, and some things will be flat against the card. I have a piece of vellum which I die cut out with a circle die, and I'm just cutting it in half. It was a little bit bigger than I would have liked, so I just wanted to ground my image on something, and I felt like that looked like it could be like an icy pond or something like that. So these particular squares, I think these are from scrapbook.com. I have so much trouble getting the backing paper off these squares. It's ridiculous. I'm not sure why, but this particular brand, for some reason, it's just a chore. So I used 4 nice big square foam pieces there, attached the vellum, and then put a little bit of the liquid glue on the back of the vellum and placed my little image down. And I felt like that gave the card a lot of nice color. And I will put the smaller sentiment above my winter, and I like the way that came out. It's so much fun, and I love the splatters, and I love that foil. So thank you so much for watching, friends. I'll put the links below, and I will put the link to the next person in the hop below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy all of the cards and techniques in the hop, and happy holidays. Thanks for watching.